You've probably noticed something, that most people don't really know the law. They know procedures. They know what they've been told happens. They know what usually happens. They know what everybody else complies with. And that right there is where the trap sits. Because there is a difference, a very real and a very important difference, between what is lawful and what is simply done. And the difference is the line between de jure and de facto. Hello, yes, welcome to this channel. This is I, Chris. I hope everyone's well. So, de jure means by law, something that has lawful authority, properly established and grounded. De facto means in fact, something that exists in practice, whether lawful or not. Now here's the problem. Most of the systems that we interact with on a daily basis, councils, enforcement, admin processes, operate heavily in the de facto department. Not necessarily unlawful, but not always lawfully challenged either. And that's the key distinction. And so if we take a simple example, you receive a letter from the council. It looks official, it uses formal language, there's a reference number, and threats of escalation. So what do people do? They comply. Not because they've verified the lawful basis, but because the appearance of authority is enough. That's de facto power. It relies on assumption, not verification. Now link this to something that we've already explored. The legal name. That name, the one written in capital letters on documents, is often treated as a legal entity. Registered, catalogued and tracked. You'll find variations of this in, let's say, Companies House. A system designed to register corporate entities, not living men or women. But the question is, when you're addressed under that name, who are you actually dealing with? And more importantly, what jurisdiction are they operating in? Because as we've discussed on this channel many times, jurisdiction is everything. Without jurisdiction, authority collapses. But here's where the de facto creeps in again. Instead of clearly establishing jurisdiction, many systems assume it. They proceed as though it's already been accepted, by responding, by complying, by engaging without question. And that silent participation becomes the foundation of de facto authority. Let's take enforcement, a parking fine, a council tax demand, a notice. The process is streamlined. Letter, reminder, final notice, enforcement. At no stage are you typically asked, do you accept the jurisdiction in which this is being issued? It's implied. Everything is built on the expectation that you will play your role. And when you do, the system moves forward smoothly. Not because it's been lawfully tested, but because it has been habitually obeyed. And so let's just get something out there. This isn't about saying that everything is unlawful. It's about recognising something more subtle. Procedure is not proof of lawfulness. Repetition does not equal legitimacy. Just because something happens every day does not mean that it has been lawfully established in every case. And this is where most people get caught out. They confuse familiarity with legality, authority tone with lawful tone, process with jurisdiction. And the trouble is, once that confusion takes place, compliance then becomes automatic. Think about interactions with the police. Most people would comply immediately. How many people of you, when you're driving and the police car is behind you, all of a sudden you think, fuck, what have I done? And so they comply, not because they've assessed the legal standing of the request, but because of the perceived authority of the uniform. Again, de facto. The authority exists in practice, reinforced by expectation and social conditioning. But the underlying legal framework? Rarely questioned in real time. And that's rather important. De facto systems don't need you to understand them. They only need you to participate in them. Because participation becomes validation. Now bring this back to your position. If you don't distinguish between de jure and de facto, you're navigating the system blind. You're assuming that everything presented to you has already met the standard of law, when in reality, many processes rely on the fact that you won't ask questions at all. And this isn't about confrontation, it's just about awareness. Understanding that not all authority is equal. Not all processes are tested. Not all compliance is required in the way that it appears. And so once you see the differences, you'll start noticing the patterns. Standard letters that avoid direct answers. Processes that escalate without explanation, clarification. Systems that move forward on assumption, not confirmation. And so then you just have to ask yourself, is this lawful or just standard? Because again, those two things aren't the same. Most people spend their entire lives living purely in the de facto realm. They follow procedures, meet obligations, respond to demands without ever asking, where does this authority actually come from? And once you start asking that, things change. Not instantly, but fundamentally, because you're no longer just reacting to systems, you're observing them. And that is where the de facto trap starts to weaken. Not through resistance, but through understanding. So what does that actually look like in practice? Because awareness sounds good, but if it doesn't change how you move, how you respond, or how you observe, then nothing really shifts. And this is where, for the most part, people stop. They hear the idea, they agree with that idea, and then they go straight back into automatic compliance. Because habit is powerful, and systems are designed around that habit. Being more observant isn't about becoming confrontational. It's just about becoming precise. It's about slowing things down just enough to see what's actually happening, instead of what you've been told is happening. Start with something simple. Next time you receive any kind of official communication, a letter, notice, demand, don't react immediately. Don't jump to payment and don't jump to panic. Don't jump to assumptions. Instead, read it like you've never read one before. Strip away the tone, ignore the formatting, and just look at what's actually being said. And ask yourself, what is this document claiming? Not what it suggests, not what it implies. What is it actually claiming in clear terms? Is it stating a legal obligation? Or is it presenting a process that appears obligatory? Then go one layer deeper. Where's the authority coming from? Is it clearly defined? Is it referenced? Is it explained in a way that stands on its own? Or does it only rely on whether or not you believe it? Because lots of de facto systems rely on something very specific. They rely on unquestioned continuity. They assume that because something's always been done a certain way, it will continue to be accepted that way. Now look at the language, because language is one of the biggest tells. Pay attention to wording like, failure to comply may result in, you are required to, this notice has been issued under. Those phrases sound definitive, but being observant means asking, are these statements backed or just asserted? Is there clarity or just pressure? You will start noticing something. A lot of communication is designed to move you emotionally, not logically. Urgency, deadlines, escalations, those kind of things. Must act now. All of it pushes you quickly to the goal that they want, compliance. Because speed reduces scrutiny. And so the first real shift is this. Slow everything down. You do not need to match their urgency. You do not need to react to their timeline. Observation requires space. Next, look at consistency. If something is lawful, it should be consistent. Not just in outcome, but in explanation. If you pose a clear question, you should receive a clear answer. Not a template response. Not a redirection or avoidance. Clarity is a sign of confidence in legal standing. Evasion is often a sign of reliance on process. Now consider interaction. If you're dealing with an official, an officer, an agent, shift your mindset slightly. Instead of seeing them as authority, see them as a representative of authority. Because to me that distinction matters. Because representatives operate, or supposed to operate, within boundaries. They don't carry unlimited power. They operate under policies, procedures and instructions. And sometimes those instructions are de facto. So being observant in these situations means listening carefully, not interrupting and not escalating, just listening. What are they actually saying? Are they explaining or instructing? Are they answering your question or just repeating a script? Patterns begin to emerge, and once you start to see those patterns, you stop reacting to the surface and you start recognizing the structure underneath. Stop assuming alignment between what sounds official and what is legally grounded. Official language can be replicated. Formatting can be standard sized, titles can be used, but none of that on its own confirms lawful authority. So instead of asking, is this official? Start asking, is this substantiated? Because that one change reframes everything. And at that point you are no longer inside the trap the same way, because that trap depends on one thing above all: unquestioned participation. Remove that and everything else starts to look different. Not louder, not more aggressive, just clearer. And clarity is where the real awareness begins. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Look after yourselves. See you again soon.